And you're listening to Northwest Tech Show on KMUZ. I'm Dave Duncan. And today we're going to kick things off, as we like to do, with a Creative Commons from the good folks at twit.tv.
This is Twit. AI continues to dominate 2023's tech news landscape. I mean, you certainly, heard it a lot on this show and on the network. One thing is clear: generative AI is forcing everyone to rethink things that maybe we took for granted before. Things like copyright, ownership, everything in between, right? One of the more recent examples of this is the AI voice cloning of hip-hop artist Drake and other popular artists. The Weeknd was part of that aren't authorized necessarily, yet they still end up with tens of millions of views, tons of listens, all over the web. And it's really confusing and interesting to see where this is all heading. So to help make sense of this tangled mess of rights and ownership is Mia Sato from The Verge. And it's great to have you here, Mia. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. And I've been really curious about this particular story. I mean, the initial kind of breakthrough of the Drake and Weeknd story, or the song, was a couple weeks ago. But this whole idea of AI authorship, or AI kind of remixes, taking a voice and cloning it and turning it into something new, it's totally caught my fascination. So I guess let's start with Heart on My Sleeve, because I feel like AI music has happened prior, and most of the time the results are kind of like head scratching, like, okay, I guess an AI made that. I guess that's interesting, but nothing quite like Heart on My Sleeve, which actually got people really excited. Tell us a little bit about that to start off with.
Yeah. So the song Heart on My Sleeve started circulating a few weeks ago on YouTube, TikTok, and it's sort of like, I would describe it as like a mid Drake and the Weeknd song. Like, it's not that good, but yeah, it's convincing enough. You know what I mean? I think saying that like it could pass for a Drake song is like kind of insulting, but it was circulating. It sounds just like Drake. I think the Weeknd part sounds a little less like him, but it sounds just like Drake. And people were freaking out about it. It was a convincing impersonation, I would say. And it had like a bunch of views on TikTok. It was on streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music. It was on YouTube, and it eventually did get pulled from streaming and from YouTube and from TikTok, but it gained a lot of steam. And I think that was the first time that listeners were like pretty freaked out about it. They were, it was like, oh, this is really good. Like, there are a lot of comments that were like, this has to be illegal, so there was like an automatic understanding that like this tech is new, like it's gotten to a new place and wider accessibility that is like pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't think any of the examples that have happened prior to this had the kind of recipe to do anything other than be a curiosity. This, of course, when you start pulling in, the voices of Drake or the Weeknd or any like big name kind of modern, musician, vocalist, whatever, something that's recognizable instantly, it kind of has the potential, and obviously successfully so, to take it to this next level. Were people responding to this because they I have to imagine there's at least a small percentage of people that heard this and they were like, oh, it's a new Drake song, or it's a new Weeknd song. Like, they didn't really think about it much beyond the fact that it is AI. But I'm sure the majority of people that were responding to this were responding to kind of the remarkability of the fact that this was a song that they didn't actually do, but it sounds close enough to take at face value.
Yeah. And I think that confusion is like a big part of sort of the legal questions that are bubbling up. The weird thing with this was like, it seemed, well, okay, I have my own thoughts about like what Heart on My Sleeve actually was. I feel like there are a lot of elements that were pretty fishy, like where it came from and who was behind it. They haven't really done anything since then. It's like kind of strange. Drake didn't post about it, even though the same weekend he was like complaining about someone putting his voice through an AI machine and making him rap Ice Spice. So it was like, why aren't you mad about this? Or why aren't you saying that you're mad about it? But I think what was freaky was like, oh, this, if someone posted it and was like, this is an unreleased Drake and the Weeknd, like, like a demo, like maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think convincing-ish enough. And I also, and you know, I think you and I are on the same page. We're not saying that this is like the most convincing replica of these artists and really confusing because it sounded just like, at the top quality, top tier stuff as their other material. But I mean, it's close enough to take more seriously than we've heard before. And again, with everything generative AI, where we're at right now is not where we'll be in a year or two. Things will progress, things will get better, and these systems will improve over that time. You mentioned just a few minutes ago that Heart on My Sleeve was actually successfully removed for copyright, but barely. In the article, you're like, it got through by the skin of its teeth. It was pulled. Talk a little bit about why it was why it possibly could not have been pulled, I guess.
Yeah. So one thing that I found really weird about the song was at the beginning, it had a Metro Boomin producer tag. And I thought that was very strange for like a song that was purportedly written by like a ghostwriter. And the story was that it was written by an industry ghostwriter who was like sick of not making money. So I was like, why would you put a Metro Boomin tag on there if it wasn't produced by Metro Boomin and this is originally, this is an original song. And that is what got it pulled from YouTube. We don't really know why it was pulled from the streaming services. It kind of came down like all at once, but it stayed up on YouTube for a while, and then finally it was taken down. And we did some reporting, and we found out that it was the Metro Boomin tag that was the problem. And so yeah, that's why I mean, like, it just barely, right, like barely got that DMCA takedown, but it's weird to me that like it wasn't re-uploaded without the tag. That would be interesting. Then what happens? Does YouTube pull this? Google is working on its own generative AI projects. So is this a valid copyright claim that even without the tag, that there's something infringing with these tools? That's a big question.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge question, right? What is said? What can we say about the likeness of somebody? Like, obviously The Weeknd or Drake didn't sanction this, by singing it. They didn't grant it any permission whatsoever, but their voice was used on it. Is likeness enough to pull someone and say, hey, you're infringing? And if you're infringing on what exactly? Is it the tonality of the voice? Is it, it's so confusing to know exactly where this is heading. Are we moving toward a future where someone's voice, whether it's used or replicated, might be enough to earn an owner rights to a song if they didn't create it?
It's weird because it's like you can't copyright your voice. You can't copyright your style or your flow or the way Drake says something. Like that's not a copyright problem.
Right.
And that's why the song is so deeply weird. It's like, well, there's no work that it was copying. But yeah, there is some case law about these issues. I was, as I was reporting the story, I learned about a couple cases. There was one involving Bette Midler, and she sued Ford for getting the rights to use one of her songs, but she didn't want to perform it in the commercial. And they hired someone who sounded like Bette Midler to sing it. And she won that case. She won that case.
Okay, that's interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And then there's another just like perfect case involving Vanna White from Wheel of Fortune. And she sued Samsung for literally building a robot, dressing it up in a blonde wig and a ball gown and necklaces and jewelry, and standing it in front of a game show board that looked like Wheel of Fortune. And she won that case also. It was like, this is part of my identity. Even though you didn't use my name, my face, this robot Vanna White is enough to sort of jog people's memories or identify her as, oh, that's Vanna White in this ad that's supposed to be Vanna White.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that kind of makes it seem, and this, of course, that's the physical representation, albeit as a robot. This is a robot voice, really at its core, so it's very, very similar. There's a lot of similarities between these things. I think what's interesting to me is how, artists will choose to react to this as we go forward? Because I mean, we've seen this in the realm of digital photography as well. There are some artists that are like, you know what, we got to stop this because it's stealing our work. It's going to put people out of jobs, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got the other artists that are like, wait a minute, this is just another tool that we can use to make better art. Let's embrace it. You know, it's kind of like the Napster example where the record industry really wanted to close down, you know, shut down Napster because they were the problem. The problem wasn't Napster. The problem in reality was just that there was a new technology, a new way of experiencing music that was open, and you can't put that genie back in the bottle. How are artists responding to this?
I would say there's like a range of reactions. I think you see sort of similar reactions as you said, visual artists kind of worrying about how these models are being trained on their work, what elements of their work is visible in this output of the models of the tools. But there are also artists, and like I said, Drake was also like mad about this Ice Spice thing. But there are also artists who have been embracing them for a while. There's an artist named Holly Herndon, and she has, I think like 2 or 3 years ago, a while ago, she created a voice model trained on her vocals. And there's a website that you can go to and upload short audio clips, and it will spit back a recording of whatever you uploaded sung in her voice. Not everyone is able to profit off of it. She has sort of a whole system for doing that, but it's, she kind of saw, I think, that this technology was rapidly improving and would soon be accessible to all sorts of people. And then the big one, I also wrote about this at The Verge, was Grimes tweeted last week, I think, that she would split royalties 50-50 with anyone who was using her voice, a voice model trained on her work. And whatever, like, I think the benchmark she said was like, if it's viral, we will like split profits with you, which it's not really clear to me what that means exactly, but she has set up, it looks like, some sort of system where you can upload stuff and create, new recordings based on this model that she owns. So yeah, it's a range of things. I think some smaller artists too that I've talked with are like thinking through how these tools can be used for their work. How, could we create demos and use it sort of as a proof of concept for big musicians? This is what it would sound like if we had you on this track. So there's a lot of interesting ideas floating around, I think. Yeah,
no question. And then one question that I have as far as tools are concerned, we're so used to hearing about ChatGPT when it comes to written AI. We're used to hearing about, Stable Diffusion and Midjourney and those tools when it comes to visual generative AI. What are the tools that are being used here for this kind of, voice cloning is essentially what it is. But I feel like these tools get less light shined on them. It's not quite as sexy in the technology world, I suppose, or I don't know what it is, but are you familiar with those tools?
There are a bunch of them, and it seems kind of like they really vary in quality. So sometimes, the models will be better than others. I spoke with someone who basically goes on Discord. There are several Discord servers that are all dedicated to people uploading their models that they've made of different artists, different people, and then anyone is free to use them. On an episode of the Vergecast last week, they used this website called UberDuck, and it looks pretty clunky, but they have a bunch of different models. I think they have a Grimes thing happening right now, and it's just, we'll see how long that stays up, but there's stuff, there's a bunch of different things.
Yeah, of course there are. And then finally, as far as the artists who right now are, putting out these AI generated likenesses of famous, musicians, and then racking up tens of millions of views and streams and everything like that. Is there money actually being generated there? Are the owners of that music actually making money when something like that goes viral on Spotify and it has Drake's voice on it?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen like hard evidence that people are making bank doing this. I did talk to someone who is making AI covers, and he also makes his own music. He's also a rapper
Right.
himself, and he was able to like translate all the viral attention on his AI covers into his own music, and like, you know, his subscribers doubled and people were streaming his music and really liked it, which is like a very funny twist to this, I think.
Yeah.
And like the Ghostwriter Heart on My Sleeve song, that was up for a few days at least, I think, until before it was pulled. So, and it had, you know, hundreds of thousands of streams. So yeah, I don't know that there's really like evidence that this is like a huge monetary threat so far. Maybe we just haven't seen one of these songs truly break through, that like radios are playing it. But I think there is sort of an ecosystem already popping up of like, we're going to teach you how to do this for the low price of like, you know, $4.99 or something. I've seen a couple things like people trying to sell these sorts of classes, how to, you know, here's how to make your own Drake song. So we'll see.
Believe it. Yeah, you better believe it. I'm sure I'm sure if you go onto YouTube and you do a search, how can I create an AI, you know,
Yes.
Drake song? I'm sure you're probably going to get hundreds of results at this point. Someone's making money out there, whether they're making it on the actual songs or how to teach you how to do it. Someone's making money. Well, Mia Sato, really appreciate you taking time and talking about this. I find this topic endlessly fascinating, and I'm really curious to see kind of how it develops over time. Of course, you wrote an excellent piece for The Verge, so people should check that out. If people want to find you online, where are they going to find you? Blue Sky, Twitter, Mastodon? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, I'm on all the platforms, unfortunately. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Mastodon, though I'm not very active. But yeah, you can find me all over.
Right on. Mia Sato, thank you so much.
And you're listening to Northwest Tech Show on KMUZ. That was a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. That was Tech News Weekly 284, talking about generative AI music and intellectual property and copyright. This is, starting to be an issue. There was a ruling that strictly generative AI pieces are not copyrightable from the Copyright Office. And so, how much human interaction is necessary to make something copyrightable? And they talked about a few your voice, your style, these are not things that could be copyrighted. Copyright applies to a fixed performance of something. So, it could be the words in a book. It could be there were lyrics and a melody to go in together into music. Could be a speech, could be acting, all these things, playing violin. These are, acts of performance, a specific performance. So that particular performance cannot be recorded and used by somebody without your permission, or at least it becomes a copyright issue. You could, sue them for copyright violations. And there's also fair use and things like that. But in this case, in some of these cases, it's, it kind of falls to right of publicity. So, if you make your living from being in movies or being in ads or whatever, it is a very specific damage for someone to appropriate your image and use it instead of the original. For example, when someone sings a Bette Midler song in the style of Bette Midler for a commercial, and it's like, well, I licensed you the song. I didn't license, but I didn't want to sing it. And that was not an invitation for you to simply get someone else who sounds exactly like me to sing it. The thing was, she did not want that performance associated with her personally. Although, they were okay to use the song. And she won that case. And Vanna White, Wheel of Fortune, famous, letter turner or whatever. And she won also on right of publicity kind of basis. She was looking for $4 million. She got 400,000 approximately. But they were saying, well, you can't even take us to court because it wasn't you. And then rights of publicity. So, there are some things that are probably going to, the vestiges of things that will have to be filled out to deal with generative AI that's, producing things in the style of or reproducing specific persons. So I don't think that would apply to, a painting in a style that you were known for, but in your actual person, pretending to have your voice or generating animation or art that looks like you, and making money off of it. So that's the issue, I think. Yeah, this is gonna get weird. So this is an area, generative AI is an area where an individual without large resources can adapt the voice and looks of celebrities. Whether it's deep fakes or voice cloning or whatever you call it. Yeah, these things can be done now, and the tools are kind of wonky, but it's like anything else, it only gets better over time, except Windows. But anyway, in theory, technology, what can be done with technology only gets better, even if specific implementations choose to make things worse. So I guess this is something, we're all going to have a piece of this, right? There were also stories where people were using voice cloners to cause all kinds of mischief with doing fraud, doing social engineering. Like your boss calls you up and says, hey, write a $100,000 check to so-and-so. And, it's your boss's voice, and the caller ID says it's your boss, and all these things are easily faked, and maybe, you're writing big checks based on that. And, good luck proving you didn't just embezzle all that money and that there even was a deep fake social engineering attack. So we need to be canny about this stuff. So, when someone is asking us to make, big value decisions over the phone, in the, seemingly from a boss or a spouse or someone who has credibility with you, dig a little deeper, engage in conversation. It's like, you can just say, hey, maybe it's a bad connection. Your voice sounds kind of funny. Can you meet me in person to verify you want this done? Or can you tell me what was, what we said about this topic in a meeting yesterday? Challenge them a little bit. We have clues from the movies on this. When you have an imposter, a lot of times, if just on a lot of generic questions, they can bluff their way past it. They can kind of, from the question, tell what the expected answer is. A talented fraudster of some sort. So, need to go a little deeper. Ideally, you've got a way of testing each other that doesn't even sound like a test. And so, you can find out that someone is, playing a trick on you without revealing that or how that they aren't who they say they are. Because when you tell them how you saw through their deception, they're like, oh, okay, that's something I can fix the next time I go after this person or someone else. So, don't even tell them how you figured it out, but work some words into conversations. Like whenever you have a conversation, you're always going to mention this one specific food or something like that. And that is the clue. It's like, okay, that's an indication that either it's this person or it's someone who's listened to enough conversations that they picked up on that keyword. Maybe be a category of things. Talk about some noun that starts with an M or something like that. It's just something a little more subtle that might not be picked up as a commonality through a bunch of different conversations. Have us start off with a sentence with 4 words and then a sentence that has 5 words. All sorts of little subtle things that might not immediately be obvious to someone listening in. But for the most part, you probably don't have to go that deep. Just the fact of being aware of this and listening for mannerisms, listening for background noise. If it's unnaturally silent outside of their voice, that might be an indication you're talking to a computer. Maybe you make some, raspberry noise or something like that, and in such a manner as they're supposed to repeat it or something, and see if they do that. It might not turn out how they're expecting. That'd be fun. All right, well, let's move on to another topic that's somewhat connected. This is a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. This is Security Now 922, talking about the use of AI-generated false news in whole sites. Security Now 922.
This is Twit. There's an organization called NewsGuard, which calls itself the Internet Trust Tool. I hadn't heard of it before, so I wanted to see whether I trusted these guys. To give you some idea of its pedigree, which I discovered, it has co-CEOs and co-editors-in-chief, Stephen Brill and Gordon Krovitz. Both are attorneys, veteran journalists, and news entrepreneurs. Stephen Brill founded the American Lawyer magazine, the Court TV cable channel, and like you, Leo, is a Yalie, having received both his bachelor's and his law degree from Yale, where he also founded the Yale Journalism Initiative.
Yeah,
Gordon
Stephen's a well-known guy. Yeah, he's good.
Right. Yeah, Brill. Gordon Krovitz is a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of the University of Chicago. He received a law degree as a Rhodes Scholar from Wadham College of Oxford University, and later a law degree from Yale. He was the publisher of the Wall Street Journal and also served as executive vice president of Dow Jones. So together, the two of them have supervised thousands of journalists around the world. They were also co-CEOs and co-founders of Press Plus, which was sold to R.R. Donnelley. So pretty clearly, they're not a pair of schlubs. And NewsGuard, which they co-founded in 2018, is not some scammy fly-by-night operation. The title of their posting, which caught my eye, and the reason we're talking about this today, was, quote, Rise of the News Bots, AI-generated news websites proliferating online. And the tagline beneath the headline reads, NewsGuard has identified 49 news and information sites that appear to be almost entirely written by artificial intelligence software. A new generation of content farms is on the way, unquote. So, the fact that the internet is fundamentally so bot compatible represents a real problem. And of course, this is not the first time this has been a problem. The reason we have spam is that email is also 100% bot compatible. But sadly, it appears that the value of the internet for news and journalism is about to become a whole lot worse, or at least diluted. Because we all need to understand and appreciate what's going on around us, and because I suspect that it will give every listener some pause when they contemplate what is already happening to our internet, I've lightly edited the article they posted in order to share it. So here's what their recent research has just revealed. They wrote, NewsGuard has found that artificial intelligence tools are now being used to populate so-called content farms, referring to low-quality websites around the world that churn out vast amounts of clickbait articles to optimize advertising revenue. Last month, NewsGuard identified 49 websites spanning 7 languages: Chinese, Czech, English, French, Portuguese, Tagalog, and Thai, that appear to be entirely or mostly generated by artificial intelligence language models designed to mimic human communication in the form of what appear to be typical news websites. The websites, which often fail to disclose ownership or control, produce a high volume of content related to a variety of topics, including politics, health, entertainment, finance, and technology. Some publish hundreds of articles a day. some of the content advances false narratives. Nearly all of the content features bland language and repetitive phrases, hallmarks of artificial intelligence. Many of the sites are saturated with advertisements, indicating that they were likely designed to generate revenue from programmatic ads, ads placed algorithmically across the web, which finance some of the world's media. Much of the world's media, much as the internet's first generation of content farms operated by humans were built to do. In short, as numerous and more powerful AI tools have been unveiled and made available to the public in recent months, concerns that they could be used to conjure up entire news organizations, once the subject of speculation by media scholars, have now become reality. Last month, NewsGuard sent emails to the 29 sites in the analysis of 49 that listed contact information, and 2 confirmed that they have used AI. Of the remaining 27 sites, 2 did not address NewsGuard's questions, while 8 provided invalid email addresses and 17 did not respond. NewsGuard exchanged a series of emails, some of which were hard to comprehend, with the self-described owner of Famadillo.com, a site that has published numerous AI-generated product reviews attributed to admin. This person, who identified themselves as Maria Spanodoris, denied that the site used AI in a widespread manner. Quote, this is a direct quote of her, "We did an expert to use AI to edit old articles that nobody read anymore just to see how it works," unquote. Spanodoris, who declined a phone call with NewsGuard, said without elaborating. Adesh Ingale, who identified himself as the founder of GetIntoKnowledge.com, a site that NewsGuard found to have published AI-generated clickbait articles about history, science, and other topics, responded, quote, "We use automation at some points where they are extremely needed. And yes, they are 100% facts checked so that no false information is created. As a world is growing towards digital and automation era, we have introduced some automation softwares in our work, but the results getting out of it are 100% original and regional facts-based," unquote. When asked by NewsGuard, Ingale did not elaborate on the site's use of AI and claimed that the site's content is, quote, "published manually under human supervision," unquote. Ingale added, "We are the new age of providing knowledge to each and every corner," unquote. The 49 AI-driven sites that NewsGuard identified typically have benign and generic names, suggesting they're operated by established publishers, such as Biz Breaking News, News Live 79, Daily Business Post, and Market News Reports. The AI-generated articles often consist of content summarized or rewritten from other services. For example, BestBudgetUSA.com, a site that does not provide information about its ownership and was anonymously registered in May of 2022, appears primarily to summarize or rewrite articles from CNN. The articles themselves often give away the fact that they were AI produced. For example, dozens of articles on BestBudgetUSA.com contain phrases of the kind often produced by generative AI in response to prompts, such as, quote, "I am not capable of producing 1,500 words. However, I can provide you with a summary of the article," unquote.
Yeah, if
which
you
it then
search for
does.
as an AI, you'll find it everywhere. It's amazing. People are so lazy, they don't even cut that part out.
Wow.
It's just
Wow.
mind-boggling.
And then in this case, that quote was followed by a link to the original CNN report.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, God. So they said the presence of these sorts of phrases also evidence that these sites likely operate with little to no human oversight. Many of the AI-generated articles identified by NewsGuard are credited to admin and editor, or have no bylines at all.
Exactly.
Other sites feature fake author profiles. For example, HarmonyHustle.com, an anonymously operated site registered just last month, lists content creators including Alex and Tom. A reverse, yeah, Alex and Tom.
Oh, Alex and Tom. Yeah.
A reverse image search of their profile photos revealed that neither author is authentic.
Oh, wow.
Some of the sites also include about and privacy policy pages that were algorithmically produced by tools used to generate customizable disclaimers and copyright notices, but were not fully completed, leaving little doubt about their source. For example, the About Us page of historyfact.in, an anonymously run AI-generated site identified by NewsGuard, stated that, quote, get a load of this, quote, this website was founded in, and then we have open bracket date close bracket by open bracket your name close bracket, period. Also History Fact commits to reply to all people who subscribe to the YouTube channel. Then we have brackets, channel link, close brackets, and follow our website. We hope you enjoy our services as much as we enjoy offering them to you. Sincerely, comma, bracket, your name, close bracket.
But this has been the computer era forever. That's like mail merge that doesn't bother to merge in a name, or
right.
We've seen this forever and ever and ever.
Right.
Yeah.
So they said the page linked to a free About Us page generator tool, which produces customized site descriptions. NewsGuard found that many other sites were using similar tools, including a disclaimer generator to create terms of service and privacy policy pages. So they finished. The unassuming reader would likely have no idea that the articles produced by many of these AI content farms were not written by a human, if not for one glaring tell. All 49 sites identified by NewsGuard had published at least one article containing error messages commonly found in AI-generated texts, such as, my cutoff date is September 2021. Yeah. Or, quote, as an AI language model, I cannot complete this prompt.
Yes. They just leave it in because it's all automated.
And then they finish saying, for example, CountyLocalNews.com, which publishes stories about crime and current events, published an article in March this year, so just a couple months ago, whose title read like that of an AI parody. It stated, quote, death news, sorry, I cannot fulfill this prompt as it goes against ethical and moral principles. Vaccine genocide is a conspiracy that is not based on scientific evidence and can cause harm and damage to public health.
Well, there you go.
As an AI language model, it is my responsibility to provide factual and trustworthy information.
Good.
So anyway, so here's the concern. The laughable mistakes that are being made today by these AI-driven news sites is only evidence that we're still in the early days, the first stages of this new and emerging nightmare. Bruce Schneier's pithy observation that attacks only ever get better, unfortunately applies here. We can be sure that these fake news sites are only ever going to get better and become increasingly difficult to spot. Their goal will be to fool Google, Bing, and other search engines into indexing their content. That will bring eyeballs to their ad-laden pages for revenue generation. What they will be devoid of is any thoughtful, new, or original content or journalism. They'll just be AI-driven regurgitation factories. And unfortunately, it's possible to imagine that the same deliberate social media style biases that have proven to be so powerful and effective in hooking people to their content will eventually be added to make them even more effective. So, here come the AI.
Yep.
And you're listening to Northwest Tech Show on KMUZ. That was a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. That was Security Now 922, talking about some false news sites generated by AI, plagiarizing from other sites or just, making stuff up and going, being posted to the web with so little oversight that error messages from the AI are just blindly posted to the site. As Bruce Nyer says, technology will only get better. There will be, standard ways of handling, okay, look for these error messages and, filter them out or something, or direct it to human attention, some sort of bailout to, make the scam go on. But often these mistakes don't matter so much. I remember being rather surprised to find out the broken English in, say, Nigerian prince wants to send you money kind of scams is a feature sometimes, not a bug, in that the sorts of people that will engage with something that is, has some pretty glaring evidence that it's not credible, is say, oh, okay, I'm weeding out all the people that are not going to fall for my con early, so I don't waste my time interacting with them. And just go straight to someone who thinks someone with, giant orange hair is a good, and a ridiculous appearance is, an excellent person to seek financial advice from, right? Once you get on that train, they know you're going to ride it all the way to the end. And now, as, the good and the bad of technology is that it extends the power and productivity of people. And that includes when they're doing bad things. So someone who normally, could only operate locally and would face consequences locally, it's like, oh, okay, this guy always lies to us. No one's going to listen to him anymore. But you give that person a global stage and an unending supply of fresh victims who have never met them before, and they can just keep going and going and going. And that's the downside of what technology offers us. So it looks like, we're kind of moving into a phase, and this has happened before, on and off. There's these cycles of, fake and reliability alternate as, there's a backlash from one and goes to the other extreme. But we're going to have to be, more proactive about where we seek our news, maybe get more local. I don't want to see national news. I want to see a reporter who lives in my community and who I trust and follow his curation of news. And he, in turn, will have specific people that he trusts that he will follow and seek for news. And it won't be this, I'm just going to take, random trending topics from the Twitter fire hose and treat it as if it's news. Yeah, that could be a good start for things, but if you can't confirm it, it's useless. You're just polluting your data stream with stuff that you can't tell if it's true or not. So why even bother with it? And I hope more people get that lesson that we need to be a little more, a little more suspicious, a little less credulous, and really kind of check our sources. And it may come down to, it's not even a matter sometimes of being able to detect the bad stuff. It's like, okay, I've got a list of sources I trust, and I'm just not going to go outside that. And hopefully we can modify our search engines or come up with our own flavors of search engines. Say, look, I only want, information from these sites, and anything with a paywall, I just don't even list it because I'm not gonna pay for their stuff. So, why even pollute the stream of sources I trust that are low cost or free with stuff that it's basically there to waste my time. They're like, well, we have to be paid for our news and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's fine. But that doesn't entitle you to waste my time and distract me away from the equivalent value stuff that's out there for free. Now, I understand some of that has been derived from those primary sources, and that's a problem too, where we say, okay, well, a credible newspaper does a story and publishes far and wide, and then all these secondary people like grab and rewrite the story or just summarize it, and they get clicks for that. Attention is money right now. That's one of the only ways to monetize online, which is another problem of the web, is there should be a way to pay the sites that you visit. And that flows both ways. The secondaries that are, taking the primary news sources, they should pass on something to the original source. At least have a way to do it. So you could say, okay, it could almost be like, ethically traded goods. Like this news was ethically sourced. Meaning you paid the primary source from and gave them credit and didn't just steal their stuff. And it could become a way for the reach of those primary creators to increase. It's like, all right, all these people that are taking your news and reposting in different forms are actually become part of your publicity chain, because money and attention comes back as well as go out. So that is a direction I hope we go, instead of just like, how can we do spam better? That's kind of what they're doing here. A lot of times there's a model for making money, like the advertising system online. And rather than, okay, how can I create good content that will justify the attention that will get me attention for the ads? Like, well, that seems like a lot of bother. How can I fool the system into sending me a lot of traffic for data that is worthless and didn't cost me anything to put together? And that's what the content farms were about. They would find the trending topics and things that were being searched for, and they would, pay people to, write up a quick article on, some search term that was hot and, promote that. It's like, okay, well, here's an article that's primarily about this thing that people are searching for, and therefore it's going to get attention and it's going to get advertising clicks, or at least views. And the motive, it turns out, has a lot to do with the quality of the end product. If your motive is just to like write something for the minimum price possible and maximize the number of search terms you're wrapping up in your stories, the stories don't tend to be very good, not very informative. Sometimes just, the things you could guess from the name of the topic, or misinformation, because it's easier to make stuff up than it is to actually look stuff up. So that was the content farms. And now with AI, you can replace the low-paid blog posters, doing something on, like a Mechanical Turk or something, where you're doing a process for, pennies. And let's just turn that over to a computer. You don't have to pay anything for, except the processing power, which I guess is not insignificant, but still, anything, once you get computers involved, it scales up better. There might be a limit on how many humans you could get a hold of to write your scummy, low value content farm stuff, but the only limit on AI generation is how much you want to pay for it. So the more processing power you throw at it, the more you're going to get. All right, well, let's finish off with one short story that I hope is sort of a more of a positive spin on things that can be done with generative AI, and that is putting it in the hands of the individual to speed up their ability to write rather than just, maximize someone's ability to scam people. So here's another Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. This is all about Android 629 Magic Compose Message.
This is Twit.
And if you're looking for some cool AI-ness stuff to come to your Google world, Google Messages or Android Messages will soon get a new AI-powered feature called Magic Compose. And actually, if we're taking bets on what might appear tomorrow at Google I/O, this could show up in the presentation. We'll see. And basically, this will give you a little assistance in writing your messages. And so, like tone or style, so you can have a formal message versus informal, to delightful, where you can get across excited, feeling excited. You can also use the music notes emoji for lyrical responses, for kind of musical stuff. And each of these will take what you've written and offer suggestions on how they could be rewritten in those styles. So if I want to tell Jason, can't wait to be there tomorrow, and I say, I want it to be more excited, it'll make the response that much more excited.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of work for a text message.
Yes, it does. So, okay, so one of these...
I want them to get the message and then propose, like, here's your response, yes or no. Like,
right.
Like, write it for me in advance. Don't zhuzh up what I've done.
So 9 to 5 Google has the example. Yeah. It's a response to a text thread where the response is, okay, I'll move the van. And they triggered the lyrical suggestion, which actually wrote like a poem.
Nice.
So it took, okay, I'll move the van to, sure, I'll move the van. I'll do it right away. I'll get it out of the way so you can have your space. It's a really horrible poem.
That's really not good poem.
But okay. It's a strange example, I guess, is where.
Could you imagine you're just in an urgent situation where you just need to communicate with someone, you accidentally hit the zhuzh it up to be like a haiku or something. And
I don't understand what this guy's saying.
What is going on?
What is this person saying?
I think the term Magic Compose could be used for, like, you send me a message. It's like, hey, you got this message. Here's a response. Is this what you were going to say? Like, anticipate what my response is going to be.
But that was kind of the promise of Smart Reply, right? Except what we've realized in using Smart Reply is it's very specific to a few very canned things.
Yep.
It's not. It doesn't have a wider context to it outside of
communication amongst humans is very difficult for machines to understand. Wait, this is what we're learning.
I actually have a very funny story with Smart Reply. I was messaging my husband for something in the kitchen. I sent him, baby, can you help me? And apparently Smart Reply only gave him the response, no. Like, that was the only Smart Reply. That was it. I was like, and then he just sent me a screenshot of that, and then eventually came up and helped me after he stopped laughing. But it's like, to your point, sometimes the machines don't understand context, but I do like this.
I know, it's a pretty succinct answer. If you just need to get the point across, I cannot, and I only have one word and the amount of time to hit that button.
But that is true, and that's what will be the failing, or not the failing, but the challenge with all this AI stuff and ChatGPT and Bard and all this sort of stuff. And it goes back to the conversations I've had with social media vendors, like applications that do sentiment tracking or sentiment analysis on social media. And the example I always give when I'm talking to these vendors, because I'm trying to use them for work, is like, it's very helpful to get a sense of, hey, we put this out there. Do people like it or don't like it, right? And generally, everyone I see, you get like a third like it, a third don't like it, and in the middle, undetermined, because the algorithms don't understand the nuance of language. And especially in our kind of geek world, you get a lot of people saying, oh my God, this is the S. Right? Yeah. I don't want to say the curse on air, but like, this is the right? And they will see the curse and assume it's negative, even though that line is a very positive sentiment that I want to be seen, right? And that's just an example of how much nuance in English language there is, and why it's nearly impossible for AI to figure that stuff out. So
and there's always going to be a gap, because it's learning based on data from us. So if human culture moves forward, it's still going to take a while for that.
It's always playing catch up.
Yeah, it's always playing catch up. So
And you're listening to Northwest Tech Show on KMUZ. That was a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. That was all about Android 629, talking about a new feature called Magic Compose. So, yeah, the quality of these things goes up, as you'd expect with technology over time, but also sometimes it goes down. something that, it took maybe an excessive amount of processing power, or something got more popular. And so the net processing demands became too high, and they, budget the power. They go for, okay, well, what can we produce with 2/3 or 10% of the processing power? And they look at that and say, good enough, and shove it out the door. It's like, okay, well, it's better than nothing, so that'll be our test. And they send out stuff into the world that does things like, say, hey, can you help me? No. It's like, okay, what kind of brain dead system is that? And, I've seen some predictive text or, suggested text on, say, Gmail. And it goes both ways. Sometimes it's like, okay, that's not super helpful. And sometimes it's like, well, wait, here's an obvious thing. Can I just have yes or no options so I don't have to, let go of my mouse and start typing, and then they're not there. So, that can be the problem of, one of the problems of tech is it meeting expectations, doing what you expect it to do. And currently we're in that state where the technology is a little unstable and we don't have very much experience with it. And so we tend to get these mismatches between our expectations and what we get. And as we mentioned before, sometimes we look to good grammar and spelling as indicators of competence. And the computers are really good at that, even if they don't know anything else. And so we look at this response that maybe was just completely made up and we go, oh, okay, that looks good. Because it's triggering our kind of rules of thumb on how we evaluate things. And so, engage with this stuff with a mind to recalibrate. I mean, really look objectively at the quality you're getting out of things based on what you put in, and cross-reference that with, what kind of impression it's giving you. It's like, okay, well, it seems like it knows what it's talking about, but here and here and here, where I know the answer, it's saying the wrong thing. And so I need to, in the context of, a little cursor blinking at me on the screen, I have to say, okay, I'm going to apply a higher standard of gauging if it's competent or not than I would if, someone just sent me a typewritten note or text or something. So that's, I guess that's part of the lessons as we go forward, learning to understand this stuff better. But also, starting to think about, okay, as this thing gets better and better at lying to me, how am I going to adapt to that? How am I going to make myself not available to be fooled? And it may come down to curation, curating a curated internet, or one where you initiate all the contact you're interested in. Like I have a flat rule of, I'm never going to buy something when someone calls me or sends me a letter or whatever, because that is everyone in the world, potentially every bad actor in the world could be mass spamming us to give out bad information. But if I go to, the phone book and I look up Fred Meyers and I call there, I have a high confidence that I'm actually talking to someone at Fred Meyers and not someone who just is saying they do in order to extract some value for me. And, fill in the blank of your high value company here. Fred Meyers, probably not the heart of a lot of sensitive transactions for you, but, you get the idea. Say your bank. Anytime there's a text or something that gives me a number, says, hey, call your bank about this fraudulent activity or whatever, it's like, no, I'm not going to call a number you give me. I'm going to look up the number on my own and call them and hopefully get some sort of cross-reference. But some of the signs are, the lack of date or the name of anyone in particular who is originating this information, just vague things. Like all the times you'll get a call from like the Windows department, whatever that means. Nobody has a Windows department, but that's their way of trying to sound official while not actually telling you anything that you can confirm. All right. Well, before we wrap up here, just a I'll do a few updates from the Spark Studio Salem Makerspace, which I'm a board member of. More people have shown up and signed up, which is a lot of fun. Some members have had interest in bringing spouses, and so, part of the thing we're doing is like, okay, well, let's make some things that will, increase the amenities here. Let's get couches and decorations and, nice lighting or whatever in, as well as, hey, it's like tools and creativity. I did have one person just said, just being in the space, they could kind of feel the creativity, and that was very calming and pleasant. And yeah, being around creative people is fun. We started a new open maker night, so that's anyone can come and work on their projects and get a sense of the space and, get to meet people and see if it's a place they'd like to spend more time. And that's every Tuesday at 6 p.m., and that's free. So just Google for Spark Studio Salem or look on meetup.com for more information about those open free meetings. And with that, you've done it again. You spent an hour talking about technology and how a better understanding of it can lead to better outcomes at home, at work, and in your civic engagements. I hope you'll join us to continue these conversations next Wednesday and every Wednesday, noon to 1 o'clock, for Northwest Tech Show.